Good afternoon, and welcome to Mindfulness for Beginners of All Levels, a special virtual workshop offered by Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and featuring Tara Healey. My name is John Roberts. I'm the operations manager for Harvard Pilgrim's Mindfulness program. Now, we're expecting quite a few folks to be joining us this afternoon, so we've set up this program as a webinar, which means that, unfortunately, we will not be able to see or to hear you, but we do want this program to be as interactive as possible. And so we encourage you to open up the chat box. You can find the button to do so at the bottom of your screen. And at any point, please type in whatever questions or comments you might have. Tara, let me ask you if you have a vision for how the Q&A will go. That might be helpful.
Yeah, so basically the way this will run is I'll take about 30 minutes or so to run through 21, 22 slides introducing the basic concepts of mindfulness and meditation. During that time, as questions arise for you, go ahead and put those right in the chat box. And then at the last half hour of our time together, will be devoted to responding to those questions, but also just opening up the floor for other questions. And we'll also do a little practice. So I'll do some practice within our time in the first half. Let's practice as well in the second half. But just don't lose those questions. So go ahead and put them in the chat.
All right, so without further ado, you've already heard from her, but it's my great honor to introduce Tara Healey, the founder and director of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare's Mindfulness program. Since 2005, Tara has been developing mindfulness workshops and courses that have been conducted at hundreds of organizations across the US in a wide variety of industries. Additionally, Tara has spoken about mindfulness at numerous events, domestic and abroad, and regularly contributes to mindfulness publications in print and on the web. Tara became a student of mindfulness 25 years ago and sits silent retreats annually with the teachers at the Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts. She has served on the board of the Insight Meditation Society, as well as on the advisory board of the International Mindfulness Teachers Association, and as a Well-Mind advisor for the International Well-Building Institute. All right, Tara, I will get the slides up for you in just a second and let you take it away.
Great. All right, so thanks so much, John. And again, welcome everyone. I want to say just a little bit about the title, Mindfulness for Beginners at All Levels, because it's probably safe to assume that some of you are joining who are brand new to practice or kind of in the early stages of practice. And also some of you who are on this call have been at this for a long, long time. And I'm guessing there's a bunch in the middle. And so wherever you fall on that spectrum of learning about mindfulness, everyone is welcome. And for those of you who've been practicing for a long time, you know that hearing these teachings and instruction over and over again is valuable, because if you've been practicing, your understanding of what mindfulness is starts to deepen. So you kind of come in it at a different way. And if you're new to the practice, know that repetition is the name of the game, and is incredibly valuable. Whereas, with some things, repetition isn't needed, but in this practice, repetition is incredibly valuable and useful. The other thing that I want to say as we begin this course and, this work together over the next hour is that we are in such an incredibly turbulent time in our history, and these practices can serve to ground us and really inform how we engage in the world around what's happening. So they can ground us and also guide us. So I'm delighted that you're all here, and let's go ahead and get started with just about a minute or two of an arrival practice, just settling in. So we'll do just a short, minute or two of meditation. So allow yourself to just settle into the seated posture. If you're standing, that's fine too. See if you can surrender your weight into the support of the surface, and yet maintaining a spine that is straight but not stiff. And just notice how your body is. Notice how things are from the activity of the day so far. noticing sensations in the body. So that could be pulsing or vibration, tingling, the heartbeat. Aware of sound in the room that you're in or perhaps outside. And allowing sound to be in the background and bringing the awareness back into the body. And just for a moment, land your attention, rest your attention on the sensations present when you inhale and when you exhale. And really that place in the body where it's most pronounced for you. And that could be the belly or the chest or the nostrils or, even just more of a general overall sense of breathing in and breathing out. And the mind will naturally wander. Not a problem. That's what it does. As soon as you see that you've wandered, just gently bring the attention back. You could even make a little mental note thinking, just for another moment, reconnecting and anchoring attention on the in breath and the out breath. And when you feel ready, allowing the eyes to open and re-engaging with the slides. Okay. All right, so just this is just a preview of where we're going to go in the next, 20 to 25 minutes or so. So just, we're kind of through the welcome. I'm going to say a little bit about the science, give a definition of mindfulness and a definition of meditation. We'll do a little practice, and there will be, as I said, time for Q&A. But don't lose your questions. So, as they arise, just go ahead and put those in the chat. So 232 million, what is this number? This is the number that if you put the word mindfulness into Google, it's going to yield this many results. And it's kind of astonishing to me because back in 2005, when we first started offering mindfulness to employees at Harvard Pilgrim, I really wished I had put the word mindfulness into a search engine just to be able to compare. And there might even be a way to do that, but I just want to give you a sense of, this is a practice that is gaining in popularity. But the interesting thing is it's ancient. There is nothing new about this practice, but the science is really helping to legitimize it. And so I just want to quickly show you, if you look back to 1980, there was basically no research, but this is a slide indicating the peer review studies. And between 2010 and 2018, and I don't have the most recent numbers, but there's almost 4,500 peer-reviewed studies, whereas you can look at prior to that, the difference. So the science has been instrumental, I think, in supporting the value and showing that these practices actually do impact the brain and body toward our overall well-being. And so the popularity of it is not surprising in some ways, but it's been around for quite a long time. So we are experiencing unprecedented fear, uncertainty, and anxiety. And let me just say a little bit about fear. Day to day that can vary, but some of us, or many of us, to some degree, have felt fear. And that can change from day to day and even within a day. But fear likes information to help tamp it down. But we're in this, again, unprecedented time of uncertainty. And what happens when you combine fear without a lot of information, it causes anxiety. And so again, it's anxiety is a very familiar emotion for most of us, certainly for myself. And these practices again have been shown scientifically to really support us. Let me say just a little bit about the brain. So anxiety really triggers the oldest part of the brain, the reptilian brain. And then it calls on the limbic system. So if you look at the neocortex, the limbic system, and the reptilian brain, just a little bit of the science here is that anxiety and fear will trigger the reptilian brain, which gets the limbic system involved. And essentially what they're doing is they are kind of working together to manage emotions. And so they won't allocate resources to the neocortex, which you could see is the more rational part of the brain, and especially the prefrontal cortex. So they're busy and they're not allocating resources to that part of the brain. And so what happens is we don't think as clearly, we don't process information as well, we don't store memory as easily, and emotions get highlighted. So that's what's happening when the limbic system and the reptilian system act. Essentially what they do is they act as gatekeepers, and they're not letting information get to a part of the brain that really can help us. But this is actually where meditation comes in, because meditation can help calm and regulate the limbic system by engaging the prefrontal cortex, and that helps us manage emotions and helps us think clearly. So it's really beneficial to bring in the practice of mindfulness and the practice of meditation. So a couple of quick things. What I want to say is that meditation is not passive. It's not a relaxation technique. We're not trying to create some special state of mind. We are not analyzing or figuring out, and we're also not trying to stop thought. Now, I'm going to offer a distinction of mindfulness and a distinction of meditation, and I want to talk how those two work together. But it just so happens that all of these misconceptions that I've listed really often are coupled with these terms. Okay, so what is it then? I'm going to give a two-part definition. So mindfulness is a quality of mind that is awake and aware and that knows it. So it's a quality of mind that is awake and aware and that knows it. And a helpful way to think about this is it's like a meta-awareness. So during the day, we get lost in thought, and we know from research about 50% of our waking hours we are lost in thought, of the past or the future, with a consequent disconnection from our moments. But there's always a time, and you can play this out for yourself, where you do wake up from it. You're like, whoa, where was I? That actually is a significant moment, because in that moment you are awake, you are aware, and you actually know it. So that's kind of the first part of the definition, just being awake and aware and knowing where you are. The second part of the definition is the kind of attitude you bring to it. So I love, this is comes from a teacher who I actually think it was a Goenka who said this, which is, mindfulness can be likened to an examination of the inner world the way looking through a microscope is to the outer. So we are bringing a particular attitude in the mind of curiosity, openness, receptivity, and patience. I'll also add compassion. And so if we string the definition of mindfulness together, mindfulness is just a quality of mind that's awake and aware and that knows it, with an attitude of curiosity, openness, receptivity, interest to whatever is happening within and around. So thoughts, emotions, body sensations, we are awake and aware to whatever is occurring. And it is fully experiencing life as it is unfolding in the minute. So in the moment, so you know what's going on. All right, so let me talk about meditation now, and I'm going to use Richie Davidson. He's a neuroscientist out of the University of Wisconsin. He compares it to, it's like saying the word sports. There are literally hundreds of different kinds of sports you can engage in, and there are different reasons you might pick a particular one. There are hundreds of different types of meditation. We are very specifically talking about one type called insight meditation or mindfulness meditation. So as a way to kind of transition into this, I want to read a quote from an attorney. And I really love this because what she says is what holds a jury's attention essentially is going to be the quality of one's own attention. If you are palpably present, mindful of, and responsive to your listeners, they will follow where you lead. But if you're droning on, reading from a script, or otherwise disconnected, you will lose them, regardless of how compelling your argument. So essentially what she's saying is quality of attention matters. When we have a steadiness of mind, others are going to notice that, and it's going to be impactful. And so what meditation does is help calibrate or steady attention so that we have an improved quality of attention, and that enables mindfulness to work better. So I think the way to think of it is we meditate by bringing the attention, the wandering mind back. So the wandering is totally fine. In fact, it's necessary. We bring the wandering mind back, we steady attention, and then mindfulness can work better and see with greater clarity kind of what's happening. So I love that. I love that analogy. And the other one I want to share with you is from a teacher named Shinzen Young, and he's based out of Vermont, but he does, I mean, exercise is often used as a comparison, and I think it's a really good one. So what he says is, if you want a strong and flexible body, you pick an exercise. And it's probably safe to say that most of you would have some desire for improved flexibility and improved strength. So you pick an exercise and you do it for a certain amount of time, you know, daily or daily-ish, so that you can develop abiding traits in the body of strength and flexibility, so that you carry that into the service of your life. So you're not exercising just so you're strong and flexible when you're at the gym or out for a walk. You are actually exercising on a very regular basis to develop these abiding qualities in the body that you can then use and employ in your day-to-day life. Meditation is the exact same thing. So we are choosing mindfulness meditation today. We are going to bring our attention back to breath sensation. There are other things that we can pay attention to if breath is hard for you, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And we are just, you know, the mind wanders, we see it, we bring the attention back. It wanders again, we see it. So it's kind of like repetition against the resistance of weight brings strength and flexibility. Repetition against the thoughts, the thinking mind, will bring calibration and steadiness to the mind. So it's a really good analogy. So I just want to, if anybody's thinking like they can't meditate because they can't stop thought, the thoughts are actually quite useful to us in this, because we release the storyline, we bring the attention back. So the best way, I think, to think about this is as a fitness routine for the mind. And so very much like we exercise the body for strength and flexibility that we can then use in our daily life, we exercise the mind for steadiness, for ease, so that mindfulness can do its job most effectively. So let's actually do a little practice right now. So again, I'm going to have you settle in to the seated position. And if you're standing, that's fine as well. And just notice how you're holding the body, so that the spine it's straight, but not stiff. And holding that body upright, see if you can soften around the spine, soften the arms and the legs. And see if you can soften the muscles of the face. And all of this just to the degree that you can. Just simply notice how the body is, you know, what sensations are known to you right now. Perhaps the points of contact with the body and the surface. And begin now to narrow the focus of attention from whole body awareness to slightly narrower, and beginning to notice the rhythm of the breath and where in the body that breath sensation is most pronounced. I want to also add, I mentioned breath is sometimes hard at certain times or always. So another thing you can do is put your palms either together or on your thighs and use that point of contact, the subtle connection and sensations you feel as your object. You can also use sound. So if there is sound in your background that is somewhat constant, you can use that. And you're simply tracking breath or sensation or sound over and over again. As the mind wanders, not a problem. You can even just make a soft mental note thinking. Just escort your attention back to your anchor. Noticing where the mind is. And as you feel ready, if your eyes were closed, you can go ahead and open your eyes. So welcome back. If any of you noticed that the mind had other ideas rather than to be on sound or body sensation or breath, you are not alone. This is what the mind does. And all we are doing is just basically saying, not now, and bringing the attention back. Tracking, letting whatever you're using serve as an anchor, anchoring your attention. We're just trying to get some steadiness so that mindfulness can do its job more effectively. So if your mind looked anything like this, with lots and lots of thoughts coming and going, then you are in really good company, because this is the nature of the mind. So oftentimes, in teaching meditation, mindfulness meditation for many years, people think they're doing it wrong. So I want to reinforce, and this is from my friend Chris Willard, and I've asked him permission to use this, and I think he has captured it all in one place so beautifully. So each time you return to your anchor, you are actually building the muscle of concentration, steadiness, calibration. When you focus on your anchor, you're detaching from the thought stream. Again, this is, what we're trying to do. We're trying to get back in the driver's seat of our attention so that we can aim and sustain our attention at will rather than being at the mercy of our wandering minds. When you notice that your mind has wandered, as I had mentioned earlier, that is a moment of mindfulness. You are awake, you are aware. It's a meta-awareness. I know where my attention is. And then bringing that kind of quality of receptivity, curiosity, and interest. I add compassion because people can be so hard on themselves when they see that their mind has wandered off, because they think I'm off task. You're actually not off task. And so to pat yourself on the back for noticing that you have been lost in thought and now you're back. The other thing is, we are, through the practice of mindfulness meditation, really learning about patterns of mind and habits of mind, and those habits and patterns that serve us well, and those that are less productive in our lives, that don't help us as well. And one of the things is, and I certainly noticed this from my own practice history, is seeing parts of myself that I'm less pleased with. And one of the benefits of this practice is you want to see those things. And can I see them with receptivity and with a kindness? So understanding those habit patterns of mind can ultimately help us align with our deepest values for who we want to be on a day-to-day basis, so that we are saying, doing, and acting in accordance with what we actually value. I think enough said about that. So I want to give a few techniques, and then we're gonna open it up for Q&A, and then I'll turn it back to John, who can give you where to go for resources. So RAIN, recognize, accept, interest, non-identification, was coined by Michelle McDonald, who's a wonderful meditation teacher. And in fact, I was sitting in a meditation retreat with her probably 20 years ago when she mentioned that she had come up with this acronym. Some of you might be familiar with Tara Brach. Tara Brach has popularized this. And so a lot of gratitude to both of those teachers. But this is a really helpful and has helped me a lot. So RAIN stands for recognize, which is just waking up and knowing what is happening. So that if somebody has triggered you and you are caught in a spiral about it, oftentimes you're caught without the recognition, but there's a moment where you catch it. So the recognize, and then, just allow. I actually love, I prefer the word allow to accept. Just allow. So you're not approving or disapproving, but you're just allowing it to be there because it is there. And the opposite of that would be resistance, some type of resistance. And yeah, so recognize, then allow it because it's there. And then you want to come out of the intellect and into the body with a curiosity about what the physical expression of that, let's just call it a provocation. Somebody looked at you wrong or said something that you didn't agree with, or you have a family member, a coworker that triggers you. I mean, the list could be endless. So there's the recognition that you got caught, there's the allowance, there's bringing it to what's the physical expression in the body. The non-identification is just simply realizing that you didn't bring this series of thoughts and emotions on. These thoughts and emotions, it's not identifying with, they come and they go. But the non-identification can be tricky to relate to. So one of the things I say is just, and Tara Brach does, is nurture. So it could be recognize, allow, bring interest, and then nurture. So bringing kind of a level of kindness. The other one I want to share is STOP. So stop, take a breath, observe, and pause. Very similar to, the way that I would distinguish these two is that RAIN could be for stronger emotions, and stop for more little irritations. So again, you've been triggered or provoked in some way, or you feel fearful or anxious, and then you notice it. So stop, take a breath, and then observe what's happening. What thoughts, emotions, and body sensations are arising, and then allow that observation and that recognition to serve as a kind of a pause so that you can then take an action. So you either don't do the action or you proceed with an action that's been informed rather than reactivity. So the opposite of this would be, somebody says or does something, there's a reactive stance right back. Mindfulness increases the gap between impulse and action. And this is a really helpful tool. So the other thing, and this is, I actually heard this from a colleague, Dr. Judd Brewer. I don't think he knows where he found it, but this helps us tap into our intentions and our motivation. So wait is just simply, why am I tweeting, texting, or talking? And I love that because, again, these practices help us to remember. They help us to remember to do these things, whether it's rain or stop or wait. But this one's really interesting because I can find myself sometimes grabbing my phone simply out of boredom. So if I can see the intention as boredom, I can actually renounce the checking and just be with the boredom. And that's really that would be an example of how to tap into the practice in this way, is that, because whatever we incline our minds toward on a day-to-day basis, we train. So that if I go to check my phone out of boredom, but I actually start to go, I can see that that's just, there's some antsiness or some boredom and I want to distract. Can I just be with that desire to distract, that boredom, that little bit of unsettledness I might be feeling? What about if I just kind of hang with that for a little bit? And then so here's a formula for practice, 5 minutes, 5 times a week for 5 weeks. It takes about 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks to build a habit. And 5 minutes is pretty doable for most of us. So then we're going to really remove the element of time. And 5 days a week gives you a little bit of leeway so that if you miss a couple, you're not going to be hard on yourself. I think this is a really nice formula to consider. The other thing with 5 minutes is that it's really, if you've not meditated or very, very little, those 5 minutes, those first 5 minutes can feel very unsettling now. And I want to just normalize that. So when we remove all of the typical distractions of our lives and we are with ourselves in this particular way and with breath and body sensation and thought, it can absolutely be unsettling. So it's like getting used to the discomfort of sitting with ourselves in this way. 5 minutes is a really good way to start. And then you can build from there. And the more time you start to add, it's almost like the benefits are in proportion to the amount of effort and time that you put in. So over time, you can start to increase. Just last 2 slides, and then we'll open it right up. Supports for practice. So I would say there's 4 things. Just set the intention. If you feel like you want to do it, dedicate yourself to it, and decide that you're going to do it for, how many weeks, 3, 4, 5 weeks to get started. You might want to create a special place in your house for that. I mean, it's hard for most of us to find complete silence, and you don't have to have complete silence. Perfect conditions are just not available for the most part. So, but to the degree that you can, find a quiet place in your house. And to commit to doing it at the same time every day, because that research, the research supports that in terms of building a habit. You might want to create some reminders for yourself. Pretty soon those reminders might lose their meaning though, so you might have to create a few new reminders. And then the last thing I would say is work with resistance, because I can guarantee, and I will tell you this from experience, that not wanting to do it is really common, and finding reasons not to do it is really common. And more than time, I think it's more about, especially because we're just talking about 5 minutes to start, but it's the challenge and the difficulty of being with the unsettledness is usually the reason why we resist. And so to trust that you can actually turn toward those difficult emotions, come out of the intellect and into the body to feel the physicality of fear and uncertainty and anxiety.